use your camera, use your pen, use your voice in court, use your reach on social media, use your platform as a lawyer, use your space as a journalist. Stand up for the truth. Because in the end, the Constitution is only as strong as those who defend it. I thank you once again and wish you fruitful, fearless, and focused deliberations for God and my country.
My name is Rnblive. I am a photojournalist and we are celebrating 12 years. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests, it is with immense pride to the extraordinary work of Mr. Rnblive, our exhibitor in residence for the next 3 weeks, remains unshaken. My spirit is with you as we unveil through the lens of truth an exhibition that is both a personal milestone and a powerful testament to our shared mission.
To have all of us together in the same room to be able to exchange ideas and celebrate World Press Freedom, I think is a very honorable and wonderful thing. So I'd like to thank the Uganda Law Society for convening this. I'd like to say kudos to my fellow panelists and to everyone in the room.
Abu is a very hardworking fellow. We want to tell the young people out there that there are people that we need to look up to. Abu is one of those, and have marked over time, who is very receptive to the new people who join the company.
I want to salute Mr. Rnblive for his recognition today, and I honor all media practitioners who continue to report with courage, responsibility, and truth. Protecting rights is not the duty of one institution, it is the duty of every citizen. Many are quick to ask, what is government doing? What is the commission doing? But I ask you instead, what is in your hand? Use it. Use your camera, use your pen, use your voice in court, use your reach on social media, use your platform as a lawyer, use your space as a journalist. Stand up for the truth. Because in the end, the Constitution is only as strong as those who defend it. I thank you once again and wish you fruitful, fearless, and focused deliberations for God and my country.
Check 1, 2.
My name is Rnblive. I am a photojournalist and we are celebrating 12 years. Ladies and and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests, it is with immense pride to the extraordinary work of Mr. Abubakar Ngowa, our exhibitor in residence for the next 3 weeks, remains unshaken. My spirit is with you as we unveil through the lens of truth an exhibition that is both a personal milestone and a powerful testament to our shared mission.
To have all of us together in the same room to be able to exchange ideas and celebrate World Press Freedom, I think is a very honorable and wonderful thing. So I'd like to thank the Uganda Law Society for convening this. I'd like to say kudos to my fellow panelists and to everyone in the room.
Abu is a very hardworking fellow. We want to tell the young people out there that there are people that we need to look up to. Abu is one of those marked over time who is very receptive to the new people who join the company.
I want to salute Mr. Abubakar Ngowa for his recognition today. And I honor all media practitioners who continue to report with courage, responsibility, and truth. Protecting rights is not the duty of one institution, it is the duty of every citizen. Many are quick to ask, what is government doing? What is the commission doing? But I ask you instead, what is in your hand? Use it. Use your camera, use your pen, use your voice in court, use your reach on social media, use your platform as a lawyer, use your space as a journalist. Stand up for the truth. Because in the end, the Constitution is only as strong as those who defend it. I thank you once again and wish you fruitful, fearless, and focused deliberations for God and my country.
My name is Abubakar Ngowa. I am a photojournalist and we are celebrating 12 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests, it is with immense pride to the extraordinary work of Mr. Abubakar Ngowa, our exhibitor in residence for the next 3 weeks, remains unshaken. My spirit is with you as we unveil through the lens of truth an exhibition that is both a personal milestone and a powerful testament to our shared mission.
To have all of us together in the same room to be able to exchange ideas and celebrate World Press Freedom, I think is a very honorable and wonderful thing. So I'd like to thank the Uganda Law Society for convening this. I'd like to say kudos to my fellow panelists and to everyone in the room.
Abu is a very hardworking fellow. We want to tell the young people out there that there are people that we need to look up to. Abu is one of those marked over time who is very receptive to the new people who join the company.
I want to salute Mr. Abubakar Ngowa for his recognition today. And I honor all media practitioners who continue to report with courage, responsibility, and truth. Protecting rights is not the duty of one institution, it is the duty of every citizen. Many are quick to ask, what is government doing? What is the commission doing? But I ask you instead, what is in your hand? Use it. Use your camera, use your pen, use your voice in court, use your reach on social media, use your platform as a lawyer, use your space as a journalist. Stand up for the truth. Because in the end, the Constitution is only as strong as those who defend it. I thank you once again and wish you fruitful, fearless, and focused deliberations for God and my country.
Lord, bye. No. Start. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome you to our press and public engagement with the Radical New Bar, the 24th of its kind, on this beautiful morning, the 26th day of June 2025. We would like to appreciate the Lord for this far He has brought us. Today we have with us a lot in stock as is going to be shared. I am by the name Robert Benonjurua, a member of the Rule of Law and Litigation Department. We bring regards from the Secretariat and the Council. We'd like to thank you for this time. We are beginning straight away and would like to take the opportunity to welcome the head of department, Ms. Afra Appeal, to give us our opening remarks and the way forward as the day shall go. Thank you so much.
Honorable guests this morning, Ms. Rosemary Chisembo, the ED National Identification and Registration Authority, Mr. Baker Mbirikuja, the Acting National Personal Data Protection Director, Mr. Morgan Mohindo, Head Programs at Health Equity and Policy Initiative, Council members present both physically and online, esteemed members of the Uganda Law Society. Good morning. My name is Apio Afra. I am the head role of law. I bring you greetings from the CEO, Miss Christina Worry, who is unable to be with us owing to another engagement this morning. I am going to read her opening remarks verbatim. On behalf of the Radical New Bar President, Mr. Isaac Semakade, Senior Counsel, I warmly welcome you to the 24th weekly session of the Rnblive series, a brainchild of our dynamic Rnb president. We value the time that you spend with us as we deliberate on topical issues during each Rnblive. Together, we have had an incredible time receiving petitions from a wide range of stakeholders, including the Bailiffs Association, Defense Council, high-profile cases, returning migrant workers from Iraq and Afghanistan, state attorneys in the Uganda Police Force, among others. We have also discussed critical issues such as habeas corpus, transfer of civilian matters from military to civilian courts, electoral violence, judicial independence, among others. We have also commemorated international observances such as World Social Justice Day, International Day of Families, World Press Freedom, World Environment Day, and Day of the African Child. We have had members of the public reach out to us to share their opinions and grievances during the Rnblive, and we are grateful for the engagement that happens before, during, and after. The Rnb President, Mr. Isaac Semakade, Senior Counsel, has asked me to express his debt of gratitude for the honor extended by the distinguished panel speakers that have graced the Rnblive, from the chief executives of large public and private organizations to our colleagues in the legal profession who have answered the call on short notice by availing their time during their tight schedules to come back home and pay homage to the Rnb. To our young lawyers especially, I urge you to attend these sessions. Rnb offers more than a platform for discourse. It's a space for growth, for networking, and for sowing seeds of future collaboration and leadership. I am grateful to our Rnb Council and the Secretariat who have worked tirelessly as a team to make each Rnb engagement a success. Allow me to talk about the Legal Tech Festival, slated for 14th and 15th August 2025 at the Munyonyo Commonwealth Resort. Previously, it was the annual law conference, but has been rebranded under the leadership of Rnb as the inaugural Digital Transformation Festival under the theme, A Radical Leap into the Digital Future of Justice. The Tech Festival will serve as a digital, inclusive, and decolonized platform to reflect and act on the evolving needs of Uganda's legal reforms. We are reaching out to various partners and inviting partnerships from the various players in the digital spaces and the legal sector to accelerate the digital future of justice. We will be honored by your presence. Today, we reflect on one important and timely theme: national ID system, data protection and privacy, that will be discussed by our distinguished speakers, Ms. Rosemary Chisembo, the ED NIRA, Mr. Baker Birikujab, the Acting National Personal Data Protection Director, and Mr. Morgan Mohindo, Head Programs at the Health Equity and Policy Initiative. Thank you all for being a part of this journey. Let us continue to raise the bar. I now invite Robert Charua to take us through the remaining program. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Afra. That was the opening remarks, we receive the blessings from the CEO, as has been read, as well as council under the able leadership of our president of the Uganda Law Society. Today, once again, we're bringing another thought-provoking idea and thought in order for us to appreciate what we do as the Uganda Law Society and our mandate of Section 3 of the Uganda Law Society Act to bring forth access to justice and espouse what it means to be a part of this country as citizens, as the Uganda Law Society is an organization and a bar association, the National Bar Association. And today we're bringing forth something that touches all of our lives, IDs, as we're all aware, national identity cards, from the littlest of children to the eldest, as we shall get to know going forward. Today's topic is very broad, but we shall give you a very brief introduction from which we shall take on and listen to the panelists, our distinguished guests, as we appreciate what we want to undertake today. So on the 15th day of August 2024, the Internal Affairs State Minister, General David Muhoozi, while appearing before the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee, said that the validity of existing IDs initially expiring in 2024 was extended by 1 year, making them valid until August 2025. One of the reasons advanced for the renewal by NIRA was that the several features of the IDs degenerate mainly because of wear and tear, changes in facial structures, the need to update data on users and of national IDs, etc. It was that imperative for the IDs to be renewed before the system of NIRA fails to read particulars of one's national ID. Recently, on the 27th day of May 2025, NIRA kicked off mass enrollment and renewal of national IDs across the country. However, the public grew wary owing to the personal information and biometric data being collected by NIRA officials, such as the names, birth details, parentage, fingerprints, facial details, among others. Given the sensitivity of the information being gathered, the radical new bar, under the leadership of Isaac Semakade, Senior Counsel, found it prudent to invite NIRA, the ED for that matter, or the face thereof, and distinguished panelists that we have here to shed more light and allay fears of the public in regard to the information collected. Now, this affirms exactly what the ULS mandate is under Section 3D, as has been said herein above, where we are supposed to educate the public and members of the Uganda Law Society and about issues affecting them. Ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is going to help to shed more light on what we have just spoken about, and we have the most able individuals to speak about that. Going forward, we are going to invite Ms. Aisha Chagaba, who is a member of the Rule of Law Department, to introduce our first speaker to get us off onto the next agenda item. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All protocol observed. Good morning, fine gentlemen. Good morning, fine ladies. My name is Aisha Chagava from, I'm sorry. My name is Aisha Chagava, and I'm from the Department of Rule of Law, and I'm here to introduce the first guest speaker, Mr. Morgan Mohindo. Morgan Mohindo is a data protection and privacy enthusiast. He is a founder of Enset Law, a legal tech company, and he's currently the head programs at Health Equity and Policy Initiative. He has written and published 15 OPEDs with Daily Monitor, Reuters, Nile Post, and The Observer. He currently co-authors a paper on AI and the imposter rule, which was published in ULS Journal 2024. He holds a bachelor's degree of laws from Kumba University and a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from the Law Development Center, Kampala. So ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Morgan Mohindo.
Good morning, everyone. Protocol observed. My name is Mohindo Morgan, and I have been introduced ably, so I will not delve into that. I have a background of legal tech, but also a background in civil society work. So I didn't prepare a presentation, but in the discussion I'm going to have in digital ID systems, we have done a lot of work around digital IDs. Our biggest concern has always been around accessibility of the ID system, but also the privacy concerns around the ID system. We have done work in Western Uganda, specifically in the Albertine region and the districts of Ulisa, Hoima. Then also I've done work around here in central Uganda, that's Wakiso and Kampala. We have carried out several research and published and shared some with NIRA, with the view that they would adjust here and there. And I'm very happy to note that since some of those reports were shared with NIRA, we have seen changes. Some changes happen, and I would ask you to clap for them on that. First, the issue of data goes to the root of us as human beings. It is that branch of privacy called information privacy, and it speaks a lot about us. If I have information about you, your name, I have information about your fingerprint, I have information about your iris, I have information about who your parents are. Literally, I know you. So if I have access to your ID now, I should be able to know when you were born. I should be able to know where you come from. I should be able to know who your parents are. So all of that data is stored, it is collected rather, and stored by NIRA. I think in one of the shows, I think it was on NTV, I don't remember the exact date, NIRA talks about, it says that it has the biggest database in the country, and rightly so. And that should be a point of concern because that information is almost on all Ugandans. The last time I checked, I think the number is around 17 million Ugandans that have so far been issued with national IDs. So those are data sets of 17 million Ugandans and are all stored by NIRA. Some of the legal concerns that we have raised with NIRA is the issues to do with data protection impact assessment. And this goes to the aspect of the principle, rather, of transparency itself and accountability. With all that information that NIRA collects from each of you here, we have never seen, and I would love to be corrected if I'm wrong, I've never seen a data impact assessment of NIRA, at least indicating the kind of data that they're collecting from you, risks, and then the mitigation measures that NIRA is to make sure that your information, my information, is safe. Why? The reason why we should also be concerned about it is because NIRA runs a centralized data system. That information is stored by NIRA alone. You have no control over it. You have no control of who accesses it. It's only NIRA that has control over whoever accesses that information. So it runs that centralized system, and it has this vast amount of data that it is storing. But we as Ugandans, as civil society, we have been questioning the risk implications, and we would think that such kind of information would be out there through their data impact assessment, if they've ever carried out any. And I know that there is an ongoing mass enrollment and mass renewal, and then introduction of new technologies or features on the national ID. We would expect that NIRA should be coming up and publishing a document like that, so that you Ugandans get to know the amount of data that they have, the risks that they anticipate, and the mitigation measures that they have taken to make sure that your data, my data, is safe. I've talked about the aspect of centralized data, and I would want to emphasize it. Just like I said, NIRA runs a centralized system, and globally that debates against these centralized systems because they are the biggest target of scammers, of hackers, because you can imagine if you want information about all Ugandans, you don't go to MTN, you don't go to Airtel, you don't go to commercial banks, you go to NIRA. Why? NIRA has information of each and every Ugandan now. From the last statistics, they were indicating they had around 17 million Ugandans enrolled on the system, and we know there is mass enrollment, so that number is going to increase. So with that kind of centralized system, you have you are a ripe ground for hackers. So that would require NIRA to really employ or deploy high technology to protect your data. But that information is not outside there. You and I don't know the kind of measures that are being taken to protect your personal information, and that is part of the accountability requirement. As NIRA, you're supposed to be accountable to Ugandans, and you're supposed to be transparent, especially when it comes to that kind of such concerns. When you're dealing with other private entities, most likely in their privacy policy, they will indicate how their data is being used, and that's part of transparency, and that's the same thing would be expecting from NIRA as a collector of that vast kind of data. Obviously, the debate is not without solutions. The solutions have been that we need to be thinking about decentralizing some of these systems. It's a way of spreading risk, that if you have a decentralized system and one system is attacked, you have another that remains intact. And usually it is referred to as the self-sovereignty bit of identity. It's a mode of identity where you have control about your information, who has access to it and who can't have access to it. In the current not digital ID system, because the court recently ruled that it is not a digital ID system, and maybe in the presentation of Madame Idi, she should be able to explain the implication of that to you Ugandans who were parties to that suit. HIPPI was part of that suit. Up to now, we're still internalizing and trying to understand the implication of that. But obviously, I would be glad to hear what she thinks about that. So back to the self-sovereignty ID system as an alternative to centralized system, is that you have control over who has access to your data. Today, I can bet almost this room doesn't know how information flows from NIRA to MTN. Do you? I can bet half of you do not know how information flows from NIRA to government MDAs. You don't. but there is a legal framework, obviously. But those are things that should be outside there. NIRA should be explaining to you, because as a data controller and collector, it has an obligation to do that. So if it is not doing it, then that's a concern that we should all have. Again, obviously the arguments for and against centralized and decentralized systems. I think the country that runs a decentralized system is Estonia, and the record, at least from the research that I've conducted, is that they have not faced that much cyber attacks compared to countries that are operating centralized systems like India, that has the biggest data set when it comes to digital IDs. So these are concerns that cannot obviously be left to NIRA. These are concerns of all Ugandans, that we should start questioning some of these systems so that they work for all of us. The cybersecurity issues or incidents have happened elsewhere and has led to loss of millions of data. I think one cyber incident happened in it was India, and almost 80 million Indian, their information was published on the dark web. So the implication of that is that there is a bidder who has access to the dark web, who has access to your ID, and when they have access to it, they should be able to access your bank. They can open up a bank account using your ID if it lands in the hands of the wrong person. So those are concerns that we as Ugandans must pay attention to, and these are not just matters of lawyers, they are matters of all lawyers, rather of all Ugandans who are operating in this space, because we are all potential victims of these systems. The other aspect that also I would want to talk about is the issue of pegging monetary terms to access rights, because you as a data subject, you have a right, one, to rectify your information if you have errors. Like when you walk to MTN and you have a misspelled name, you want to rectify your information. You have issues with your date of birth previously before the national ID, you would walk to MTN and that information is rectified. Today, unlike MTN that I would understand, for them maybe to give me a new SIM card, I would have to pay for it because it is a private entity and also it is voluntary. We find it a problem that NIRA still charges, rather applies a fee for rectification of errors or correction of errors on ID. I understand these are legal requirements, but just like I said, these are matters that we cannot leave to NIRA alone. These are matters of Uganda Law Society. These are matters of the general public. These are matters of civil society. These are matters of policymakers to make sure that we change some of these laws so that such kind of bottlenecks are removed. In one of the research that we conducted, most of Ugandans have decided not to correct errors on their national IDs because of the monetary aspect that is pegged on that right. And the implication of that is that there are several services that you cannot access as a Ugandan. The premises of government that you can't go to without a national ID. The services that you cannot access without a national ID because they are mandatory. So when you as a Ugandan, you've decided that I'm not going to correct this error, now you're assuming a new identity and you're losing your identity. So those are access bottlenecks that most Ugandans are suffering from, and it may not just be an issue of NIRA to rectify because these are legal requirements. The money is stipulated for under the regulations, so you would need the minister maybe to revoke those regulations. If that in the act, then that would mean the Parliament has to amend that act for that purpose. Lastly, it's the issue of accessibility. Again, I'll keep mentioning our report that fortunate enough we shared with NIRA. Most of the people complained about the physical distance that they have to travel to access NIRA services. I'm quite aware that NIRA has over 27, if not 127 out of 146 districts in Uganda. Those are their offices, contact points. But you can imagine, if I just want to know about NIRA services, I would have to walk to their office. There's no any other alternative apart from you and I who are digitally savvy. You can navigate these things through their website. And again, I commend them for the new vibrancy on social media, on their website. At least they're more active, sharing. They're called FAQs, yes, on their website. That would be quite important. But I'm imagining my grandmother who's down there in Kisonko, where I come from, and she has no access to a phone, and she has to travel long distances just to access the frequently asked questions. And one of the recommendations we made in one of our reports was that why can't you not just decentralize some parts of you, that part of NIRA, decentralized to other government entities? Because I know that the arguments that most of the government entities work in silos, because we would imagine that at LOC level, I should be able to find translated, frequently asked questions about NIRA services. We have interacted with a couple of LOCs, and you barely find this information there, but also you barely find LOCs who are knowledgeable in some of this information. So those are our accessibility issues that also need to be handled. So here the rights that are at play are: one, the right to privacy itself, which I have ably discussed, but also the aspect of discrimination as a result of inaccessibility of NIRA services, issues to do with inequality created as a result of inaccessibility of NIRA services. I know we went to court, and court didn't agree with us, but we laid several evidence to indicate that there are members of this country who are excluded from the ID system and consequently excluded from accessing several private and public spaces because they do not have national IDs. I know the number in those affidavits may look, rather in that case, may look negligible, but if you and I understand the implication of human rights violation, you will understand that until you're in the shoes of that negligible number, it's when you'll understand the brunt, the challenges that people face. So for us from civil society, the issue is not even about opposing these systems. The issue is about, when you introduce them, make sure they work. And when you introduce them, make sure they do not exclude the people. And when you introduce them, make sure you are accountable to the people. And when you introduce them, make sure you are transparent to the people. So that has been the biggest call. That has been the major issue that we have raised with all digital public infrastructure, not just the national ID. We have raised these issues with the digital number plate. We have raised these issues on with the I think it is called the education information system. We have raised all of these issues. So the last thing that obviously I would want to recommend, especially to NIRA, is the aspect of implementing privacy by design. One, in your systems, but also in acquisition of your ICT assets. I know recently you acquired a lot of ICT instruments, and like most of the government entities, I know these are internal things that we may not have information to, but obviously as members of the public, we would want to see some of your policies speak about these principles. Because I would want to know where you're outsourcing your services. If you're hosting, for example, who are you hosting from? You get me? If you're hosting your database. Sorry about that. If you're hosting your services, so whoever you're outsourcing to give you that service, you must scrutinize them to make sure that the privacy of Ugandans is protected. So there are several principles that I may not go to, but I would think that those are the things that we should be thinking about, and also looking at the emerging technologies to make sure that we protect Ugandans. The privacy of Ugandans, the privacy of individuals is paramount, because we all know and understand the dire consequence of cybercrime. People have lost money, people have lost lives because someone somewhere has had an access or an illegal access to a database that is hosted by government or hosted by private entity. So those are some of the concepts, some of the issues that we keep emphasizing. And I know Court said that in the world there is no, I don't remember the exact word they used, there's no perfect ID system. Yes, we agree that there's no perfect ID system, but as long as you're dealing with critical aspects of life, like privacy, Ugandans must keep speaking to you and informing you and reminding you about their privacy and about their rights, especially when it comes to access to the ID system, which is critical. Well, I know you're looking at your watch. My time must be fast spent, so in 2 minutes. I know you may think that, again, we are against national IDs. Not necessarily. Like someone was introducing me here, I've written over 15 articles with several newspapers, and one of them was around collateralization of personal information to accessing money. You know that you have people in your villages that if they walk to a commercial bank, they will never get any loan. That even when they walked to the friends, those friends would never give them that micro loan. Why? Because they have reputation issues. But today, because of your national ID, you're able to access microloans from several micro-lending platforms. And I can assure you, without that national ID, chances are high that you wouldn't be able to access that because it was hard for you to be verifiable. So that's several other good things that this national ID brings, and that's why we keep emphasizing that it must work for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Advocate Muhindo, for your thoughtful discussion. We are in the habit of raising such issues. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed public members, we just have to know that when we come here, we're trying to trigger the mind for us to know, as it is, that we are entitled to some of these things in regard to being a citizen. And as we move forth, we just want to reiterate that the Ugandan Law Society, in its vision, is to be a proficient bar association, fostering access to justice, the rule of law, and good governance in Uganda. And this is exactly what we are doing. So please appreciate that this is exactly what we want to do, and we are open to questions. There will be a question and answer session, of course, to the panelists and also the general public, so as to give us your views, and we shall make sure we use that information accordingly. We want to move forth to the next agenda item, going to introduce the next speaker, but as we were at it, for us to know the team that the NERA team moved along with some literature, of course, in the implementation of the Registration of Persons Act. That is actually the statutory instrument that that gives mandate to NERA. This is around. Kindly use it for the members that are physically present. Read through it, peruse through it, and derive your questions, because we have the head of NERA. The face of NERA is here with us, and you can be sure that all questions can be answered. I'm also being informed that there are also copies of this on the website. That information will come forth unto us, especially in this discussion. Kindly feel free. We're going to very fast, without further ado, welcome our next individual to help us introduce the next speaker. That is none other than Miss Anne Charlene Nakazi, who is also a member of the Rule of Law Department, is going to help us introduce the next speaker so as to go into listening to the next exciting individual. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. My name is Nakazi Anne Charlene. I'm a member of the Rule of Law Department, and I'm here to introduce our second guest speaker, Mr. Becca Birikuja. Mr. Becca Birikuja is a legal and compliance professional with more than 10 years experience, 5 of which at senior management level, focused on information technology law, data protection, and cybersecurity. As Acting National Personal Data Protection Director, he oversees nationwide strategy, coordination, and implementation of Uganda's Data Protection and Privacy Act, CAP 97. Regionally and internationally, Becca advances data policy discourse through the Global Privacy Assembly's International Enforcement Working Group, the Africa-Asia AI Policymakers Network, the African Union Data Governance Committee, and the East African Community Data Protection Harmonization Technical Working Group. He co-authored the Uganda chapter of Walter Kuwe's Privacy and Technology Law 2021. Becca holds IAPP's CIPPE and CIPM certifications and is a fellow of information privacy. He earned an LLB from Uganda Christian University, a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from Law Development Center, and a professional award in complaints handling and investigations from Bond Salon. Please help me welcome our second guest speaker. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. Good morning, at least for the physical audience. Good morning. Thank you. And to be sure, I'm not speaking to myself. I've already been introduced. My name is Becca Birikuja. I think the person who has introduced me of not violating the data protection principle of accuracy. It always starts with, my name is a tricky one, the surname, very many people mispronounce it. And I always start with that point to help you understand data protection and privacy. There are some that call me Barikuja, others call me Birikuida, others Birikuija, others Birikade, so you can imagine how I have to struggle with my name. But it doesn't just stop with the pronunciation, but it also goes with the spelling. My name has a double J. So when you talk about data protection and privacy, and so many people wonder, why is it even necessary? Why should we have these discussions? It starts with the principle of accuracy. Because every individual, if you have a misspelled name, you will always have to struggle. And if it's reflected on your national ID, you need a statutory declaration. So the aspect of data protection and privacy touches every Ugandan because we all have names, and in the data protection and privacy itself is not unique to Uganda, having understood how it impacts everyone. It starts from as far back as 1948, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were passed. And within there, they included the right to privacy. Now, that particular right has also been reflected in so many constitutions around the world, including Uganda's for the 1995 Constitution. I've started from there for you to understand that privacy, it's a human right, yes, and it has a backing solid in our Constitution. But in the Constitution, not much changed because it was just providing for it. Other laws, especially when many Ugandans started using technology, their information was being collected. So issues of confidentiality started coming in. And the three laws, the cyber laws dealing with the Electronic Transactions Act, Signatures, and Computer Misuse Act, provided for those aspects of confidentiality. But what changed significantly in Uganda is when the Registration of Persons Act came into force. As the speaker talked about, is that government needed to collect information about an individual because people struggled, even entities, in getting to know who they were dealing with because there wasn't a single source of truth, to put it that way. So with NIRA, that came in to address that particular issue. Of course, earlier we had passports, but not so many Ugandans could acquire them due to a number of reasons. One, a need, someone thought, well, I may not use a passport, so they didn't see the need of getting one. So in 2019, when the Data Protection and Privacy Act was assented to by His Excellency, the President of Uganda, it created a comprehensive regulatory environment whereby, including NIRA and other government agencies, or even private sector, academia, civil society, and even individuals that collect personal data, they are regulated by that particular law. In 2021, it's when the Personal Data Protection Office, the regulator, was operationalized. That is the office where I come from, and as part of the regulation, we register entities that collect personal data, provide them with regulatory guidance, and even investigate incidents where there's been misuse of personal data or breach of privacy. Going to the discussion at hand, privacy and data protection in the mass enrollment and renewal of national IDs exercise. PDPO, we've had a unique opportunity. I'll call it unique because we've worked with NIRA with this journey of ensuring that data protection and privacy is actually observed. There are a number of drives that may go on and privacy comes as an afterthought, but as the regulator, we can tell you with NIRA, they reached out, we've been working together to ensure data protection is embedded by design and default. So even before the renewal, the mass renewal exercise was rolled out last year in March 2024, the executive director of NIRA invited PDPO at a staff retreat. Though ED, I don't know whether that I can call it a retreat. It was, sorry Brenda, a boot camp, that's the right word. So we're invited, and there were over 400 permanent staff of NIRA in attendance. We took them through the data protection and privacy law, the requirements, and even penalties. Now, this law has penalties. Not just, I'll start with the entity. Any entity, even including government, that misuses personal data can be fined up to 2% of its gross annual turnover. For government, that would mean your budget. It doesn't stop there, but the individual can also go ahead to seek compensation from courts of law where they've suffered distress as a result of misuse of their data. And every individual that allows the non-compliance to go on can actually be imprisoned between 3 months to 10 years. That message was relayed to the NERA staff that were in attendance. There were even some board members around. And what we did at the end of it is that every person that was in attendance signed a data protection and privacy commitment, committing that in whichever work that they do, they'll ensure that they abide by the law. Well, you don't even have to sign it because the law will still apply, but that was a way of reminding them that actually the provisions are there and what they are and what can be done to you. Of course, many of them are wondering, why do I have to sign one? But the executive director, as the head of the institution, led by example, and she was the first to sign it. So this was collected and it is kept on file for the NERA staff. But we didn't stop there with the support. Specialized trainings were conducted by NERA. Still, as the regulator, the Personal Data Protection Office were invited. This has been done over a number of months, from as far back as January 2025 to May, where I would go as a PDPO and train them, those that are going to be involved in the actual collection of this data as part of the mass enrollment of, and renewal of national IDs. So you've ensured that that is upheld, individuals are aware, and for those that have already undertaken this process, Mr. Muhindo talked about the need for a data protection impact assessment. Now, we've been working with NERA, the assurance that I can give you, excuse me, with NERA. In March, we supported them with conducting excuse me, a preliminary data protection impact assessment, looking at the time, the entire cycle of collection and processing of personal data as part of the mass enrollment and renewal. And of course, as the previous speaker talked about, this data protection impact assessment, it is meant to see what are the risks of your massive collection of data and introducing of automated systems excuse me, of collecting of such data and coming up with mitigation measures. So when we were conducting that DPIA, rather NERA was conducting and were guiding them, questions came up that if a person is going to renew their national ID, do they have to be asked the entire set of questions, yet NERA already has the information? And of course, we said, you know, that will cause a risk. Person may feel fatigued, they may not even give you correct information. So the DPIA informed that that renewal form should be revised and focus on the information that an individual needs to update, because NERA already had that information in their database. And as you saw, those that have already undergone this exercise, that you are asked fewer questions with a pre-registration portal. That was informed by that preliminary DPIA. But even before the completion of that form, that DPIA, it brought up the need, as required by the law, that you talked of the transparency, that NERA should tell you what information they are collecting, why they are collecting it, which is covered in what we call a privacy notice. Still within that pre-registration portal, that privacy notice is actually flashed before your eyes before you can go ahead to submit the data. That activity came from that preliminary DPIA. And then still, because you know the DPIA, it's a living document because the exercise is ongoing. Now, based on their earlier experiences, and I'm not speaking for NERA, I'm just giving the what we've been able to guide them, because they've been able to open up since we walked the journey with them. There was the issue of a person seated on the other end, whereby you give them the information and you can't confirm what they've written. This happened to me as well. I told you my name is a tricky one. So my name was misspelled and it had only a J. So as part of the DPIA, a process was introduced of having a display in front of you that the information you provided, you can read and confirm the accuracy, tying into the accuracy principle of data protection. There are so many others, policies that were developed. A comprehensive one, it's conducting it is ongoing, and the assurance we can give the public that PDPO will continue to monitor. As they request to have the DPIA published, Now, a DPIA covers so many risks, including security risks. They cannot be published in their entirety. The element of transparency is that because what you need is assurance, NERA, what they can do is that they can publish a summary, but with redacted information. Because in information security, if all your flaws or what you try to do, you put it out there, that is an information security flaw in itself. But at least as the regulator, PDPO, will review that DPIA because it's conducted by them, and then advise them on the summary. That's why such offices exist, to give you that assurance. And not just even PDPO, but even Office of the Auditor General, they can look into it to avoid unnecessary risk being put out there. Now, lastly, I'll talk about further activities that PDPO plans to do, especially in regard to the mass enrollment and renewal of national IDs exercise, but even generally the operations of NERA, because this particular exercise is not the end of the work that they are doing. We are developing a data protection and privacy audit and inspection manual as PDPO. Why we are developing it? Because PDPO is further operationalizing its inspection function. Because when we register entities, the office is required to go in and audit, look at their processes, how you're collecting the data life cycle from collection, sharing, storing, even archiving, deletion where it's possible, and all those other measures of which NERA largely does. So within that development of the audit manual, one of the entities that have been identified to be audited in the next financial year is NERA. So it will be ongoing. Now, an audit is different from an investigation. An audit is to sit down with that particular party where issues are identified. You ask them to come up with a remedial action plan for a specific period of time, prioritized and addressed. So it's ongoing, and we thank NERA for being open, making sure that PDPO can advise them. They always reach out to PDPO, regulatory advice, but even making sure that any element to do with data protection, PDPO actually provides guidance, because they've been issued a circular in June 2023 requiring all third parties that access data, the National Identification Register, to be registered with PDPO. And we've been actively monitoring that as well. The telcos, most of them are registered at over 90%. It's only one that is remaining in regard to the mobile money space. Financial institutions, they're all registered. It's just one whose registration has expired. And they haven't even stopped at issuing that circular, but even we've developed with them a compliance tool which they can use for those that access the data in ensuring that they monitor them. They sign memorandum of understanding with them, so that is also embedded. But also they've required entities to ensure that they are certified against specific international security standards. So it's an ongoing conversation. I can only speak from the regulator's perspective in regard to data protection, but for NERA, they understand their processes way better beyond what us, the regulator, we are able to look at. And with that, allow me to invite the Executive Director to take us through the next part of this session. Thank you for listening to me.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. I want to begin by thanking the Radical New Bench Bar for giving us an opportunity to speak and discuss matters of law and fact that relate to registration of persons and identification. I'm glad that I've been given this honor that I did not take for granted, and I note that Back on Track emphasizes digital transformation. Because I'm before a body of persons like you, of your esteemed nature, I will not say most people hypothetically. I will speak on law and fact. I will not speculate. I will not hypothesize. I will speak on matters of law and fact. I will start with Article 10 that speaks to the citizenship of Ugandans, from which we derive our mandate. That article defines who a Ugandan is, and among the features they emphasize within that article is tribe. Among the features they emphasize is heritage, and they talk of parents and grandparents. Therefore, as an entity responsible for collecting information and ascertaining citizenship, as delineated in CAP 332, Section 5 of our Act, we cannot shy away from tribe and parents and grandparents. Our right to collect that information is embedded first within Article 10 and second within Section 5 of our Act that requires us to create, manage, and maintain a national identification register. Secondly, to register citizens described in Article 10 of the Constitution, to register non-citizens, to register births, to register deaths, and the many things that you probably know better than me. Therefore, in response to the specific concern involving the collection of extensive biometric data, including individuals' full names, date of birth, details of origin and tribe, names of parents, passport-style facial photograph and signature and fingerprint and iris, they are well within our rights, both at constitution level and also within our specific law, and I will make reference to the information that we are required to collect in the Registration of Persons Act. I will interest you in it. Information, they describe it as that data that relates to nationality, age, or marital status of the person, data that relates to the education level or occupation of the person, or data that relates to the financial transaction in which the person has been involved, an identification number, symbol, or other particulars, and identity data. I therefore will not belabor that point that relates to that matter further, because I am preaching to the converted. I will then move to the matter that relates to most Ugandans are not allowed to change their data. As I indicated, I shall not speak hypothetically. So I will not attempt to ask how many Ugandans change their parents, how many Ugandans change their mother and father. Okay, what percentage of Ugandans want to change their mother and father? What percentage of Ugandans wants to change their date of birth? What percentage of Ugandans want to change fundamental information about themselves? I will not debate that. How many in this room want to change their mother and father? Maybe by show of hands. How many want to change their date of birth? Okay, from the statistic in this room, I seem not to have the most. Maybe outside here. I will not belabor that. We do recognize, and the law provides for correction of errors, persons who made mistakes, and gives process for that. But they are also called errors. The law recognizes that it is not normal to change your mother. The law recognizes that it's not normal to change your father, because it's a fact. My DNA makeup is not something that I change at will. The law gives process for change of names. And that process is, I'm in the right place. You guys know statutory declarations, deed polls. Those are not documents authored or in NERA. They are all documents authored by legal process, not just of this act, but standard procedure of changing information that has been transformed with their safeguards. The National Identification Registration Authority was established in 2015, and to date we have registered and issued NINs to 27.8 million Ugandans. Of those, we've issued IDs to 17 million. NINs are issued to people, to all Ugandans. IDs are issued to persons 16 and above. I will start on the topic of personal data and ask, personal data has within this ecosystem a few players. One, they are the regulators, there are persons with like civil society, there is NERA, and there is the person to whom the data pertains. And I will ask, in honesty, how many of you have left a photocopy of your information somewhere? Just put up your hand, just for discussion. Was NERA there? So you are the biggest risk to your personal information. And the narrative being built that NERA is the biggest risk to your information is not factual. For example, to access your personal data, do you encrypt it? No. You willingly go, you apply for a job, they say give us your ID, you make a photocopy, you don't even tell NERA, you don't even ask us. But for us to share your information, we require fingerprints. That's why when you go to MTN, they ask you to put your fingerprint as acceptance for retrieval. So consent is fundamental, and I emphasize, I repeat for emphasis, consent is fundamental to access of information by third parties. Kanchidde mu Luganda. Okukkiriza kwo okulaba information yo okuva mu NERA we tutandikira ffe. Kasita tumala ogitwala. The moment we retrieve your information from you, even if your own mother came for it, we ask for your consent. And you can try it. You can try it. You are lawyers. You are into evidence and fact. I'm not speculating. Try it. Go to a NERA office and ask for your neighbor's information and receive it and put me to task. How many of you have gone to NIRA and asked for your neighbor's information and it was given? Mr. Mhindo, have you ever received from NIRA information that is not yours?
No.
Thank
but
you.
Maybe we shall have a discussion during the Q&A what I meant.
Okay,
Yeah.
what you meant and what it sounded like
Yeah,
are two different things.
No, obviously what I say and how you perceive it, I have no control over it.
Thank you. So I want to first deal with the narratives. I have severally spoken to civil society and said the effort that you are taking with NIRA needs to be taken with the owners of personal data to highlight to them that they are the highest risk to their data. Back to NIRA now. I'll respond to several issues raised and I'll take my seat to allow for a discussion. There was a proposal for decentralization of data. The system we come from, how many of you have seen our kit? The NIRA kit. That is the first data collection point. Is it at NIRA headquarters? If you have been to NIRA, you have also, if you know NIRA, our previous system had servers at every district. So in effect, the aspects of decentralization that are discussed are not altogether not thought about or not taken into account. But it is not commonplace to discuss the architecture of security in a bar or in a place where it's not understood, it doesn't make sense for NIRA to say, by the way, friends, we have a decentralized architecture. Within that architecture, we have API gates and API gateways everywhere. And then we also ask for encryption, algorithm AE256. That is not what we communicate to the public because it doesn't make sense to them. So I think communication, sensitization also is determined by the audience. A message is determined by the audience. So within persons who understand privacy in depth, security in depth, for example, if I asked anyone here, how many of you know defense in depth principle? Put up your hand. Even the legal tech. Okay? How many know fail safely security? The principle of failing safely. How many of you know the principle of least privilege? Put up your hand. So would it make sense for me to come to this forum and begin to lecture you on the principle of least privilege? No. So when we go to the public to talk about the public, about their information, we talk about the discussion of protect your data. Do not share your data with everybody. But that doesn't mean that we do not apply the principle of least privilege. It does not mean that we do not apply the principle of encryption at rest and encryption in transit. It does not mean that. It does not mean that we do not fail safely. Or it does not mean that we do not minimize the surface attack area, which are all principles of security design, or design, whatever way you want to call it, privacy or security by design. They are fundamental, they are backbones. But within the right audience, we have the discussion. to you, the owner of the personal data that we are custodians of, our message is different. Our message is, what data do we collect? How do we collect it? When do we collect it? At least I dare say that no one has ever come to NIRA with their X-ray to give us data. Meaning that there is a certain knowledge of the documents you come with to NIRA. Accessibility. Still, accessibility goes to who are we discussing? I will not discuss in general terms. The Data Protection Act clearly articulates who has a right to data, who has a right to access your data, but also, of course, there's the notion of we are not in the whole country. That is true. But as I speak right now, God in his design and grace has allowed that this meeting has happened now. We are all over the country at parish level. Even Mr. Muhindo's HIPAA is not beyond Kampala. If I asked him about the 10,594 parishes, I probably might know more about them as an entity than many in this room or many civil society entities. The concept of data collection, I've told you we have 27.8 million of persons on our register. They have not all come to NIRA office. For many, we have done outreaches and found them in their place of residence. Last week, I was in a place in Kasokoso. I'm sure many of you have not been there. How many of you have been to Kasokoso? Okay, one in this room. How many of you have been to Loro or Namalu? We had an exercise last week when I went there. At the same time, in Loro, in Namalu, in Moroto, in Nabilatuk, I can name areas that I physically visited. I would put you to strict proof for the same. So therefore, accessibility, let us not, it is true that in the normal course of operations, we are at district level. Because after we collect your personal data, it is not every day that you are changing it. So the purpose of this exercise is to reach everybody. Then we don't need to be in the village, because not everyone is changing their mother and father. So I really want to be clear on that. That let us give context to conversation. Because there are people who are misusing data, no doubt. We need to empower people to protect their data. Personal data is not going to be protected only by NIRA, law society, civil society. No, the best protector of personal data is the owner of the data. Today, when you come for enrollment, you have a screen you are looking at. That even when you don't know English, we say, funayo omuntu akusomereko ebyo byowandise betwakubulidde. Is that what you told us? So let us not deride the effort that has been taken in bashing just discrimination due to accessibility. I will not attempt that. Mr. Mhindo, have you been to Loro?
I think I've been to other deeper villages in this country, not just Loro. I think Loro is not the only deepest.
Okay, we are in 71,000 villages at any one time in this country. If you have been to 100, I will clap your hands. I'll clap my hands for you.
I don't know how many villages are in Terego, but they could be, as a district, I've traversed the whole of it.
I will give you homework to find
so
out the number that you have been to in Terego. So I will move on from there. But in NIRA, we have held exercises in more districts, I dare say, than people have been to in this room. So in terms of accessibility, we have made effort to reach people where they are. Exactly where they are. Even now, as I speak. So I will not belabor discrimination due to accessibility. Of course, exclusion falls on the west side immediately. And Ugandans, we do have serious problems that are relating to data. I would rather we focus on those than narratives. Exclusion. Who doesn't have a face? Is there a living human being who doesn't have a face? When we take your data, if you don't have fingerprints, we only ask for your biometric, your face. So at what level do we exclude? Let us have an honest discussion. When does exclusion happen? If we say, okay, if you don't have a face, if you don't have an fingerprints, let's take your iris. If you don't have an iris, fair enough. Let's take your face. Your face. I don't know of a living human being who we don't take their face. Therefore, I don't understand the clause of exclusion that you wish to burden NIRA with. Maybe you would say we have not reached the 45.9 million Ugandans, and I would say yes. An effort is underway. But to say that the process in itself excludes is a fallacy. Identification. Why do we identify? Identification is not a fact that was brought about by NIRA. Let me start within the cultural practice of Ugandans. When you go to a mukolo in any kingdom of Buganda or within any region or tribe of Uganda, you begin by identifying yourself. Sometimes they say tambula ngo Muganda. Nze mwana wa gundi ne base tajja yebasewa. That is an identification process. So, before I get lost in the how, I wish to establish that identification is a requirement of society. It is a necessity, a necessary evil, if you may wish to say. Why? Because when you seek a service or audience from another, they have to know who. The first question when you arrive in a room is, who? Who are we dealing with? That's what makes us human beings. With cattle, they say, how big is your herd? We have 2,000 cattle. No, we are not cattle. The fact that we are human beings, we are required in the essence of who we are to identify ourselves to others. Even a baby. I worked in West Africa. There was a cultural function at 8 days called Pull the Door, whereby the baby was introduced to the world, named and given an identity. So why NIRA? NIRA is the custodian of everybody's identity and acts for and on behalf, with the consent of the person whose data they are custodian of, to provide identity services to a third party outside who that person is. We all love travel, at least I do. I just want you to show me, but the only person I know who travels without a passport is King Charles. I would love to hear HIPAA's views on biodata on the passport when they are traveling around the world. So, identification is a requirement because of the fact that we are all not born in the same home, and because we seek services from each other, we need another person to have someone say, I collected information on this person, and with their consent, if they agree to it, I will give you details of who they told us they were. For the record, on our database, we have about 450,000 people with the same 3 names and the same date of birth. I repeat that. We have 450,000 people with the same 3 names and the same date of birth. That's where biometrics comes in. That is where biometrics comes in. And that is before I go to the ones with the same 2 names and the same date of birth. I've not reached there. I'm starting with 3 names and same date of birth. So if those 2 individuals walked into this room, how would you distinguish them, Mr. Muhindo? Yes, I do.
I think we can have that discussion much later.
Thank you so much. Therefore, I appreciate the role that Law Society is playing in increasing knowledge of all Ugandans on their rights and privileges. I also appreciate the role that civil society is playing in increasing the rights and the knowledge on rights and privileges of all Ugandans. I, however, ask that this information be based on law and facts. We can discuss challenges, failures within the law and facts. And there are many. We do not need to create a colorful story. There are many challenges we have. I would therefore beg this distinguished audience to, 1, begin to train persons within the scope of their mandate of this organization on who they are as Ugandans, who is a Ugandan, because that is a constitutional matter. To borrow the language once used, it is a matter for you generals, and I will leave the matter of the generals to the generals. It is a constitutional matter. I know that the constitution is a very big document in any country. The identity of Ugandan is enshrined in that book. Our simple role as NERA is to collect information that relates to that, and in creating, in managing, and in maintaining a national identification record you as a citizen. We do not go beyond that. There have been allegations of surveillance. Your phone surveils you more than NIRA. Your Facebook template surveils you more than NIRA. Because surveillance suggests movement, yet our data is static. I do not know your coordinates. I don't know where most of you live. I also wish to add at this point that you can check it if you do wish. Every time your record is accessed on the National Identification Record, the system keeps a record of who did it, when they did it, and a reason why they did it. You can try with your own. You can write to us and say, give me a list of everybody who has ever accessed my record. For some of you, or many of you, if not all, you might find that nobody apart from MTN or Airtel. And your bank. So therefore, I want to have a discussion on on aspects we would like to improve. There's no doubt about that. And all efforts are being made to improve. But we, both I and you, have a role of encouraging people to protect their data, because they are the greatest risk to their data. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, members. She's spoken like a mother. We all know that. It has been very categoric, no hypothesis. It has been facts. She's speaking to advocates. She's been speaking to members that she knows know the law, but also to the public. Nonetheless, we don't take anything away from those that are not lawyers, because at the end of the day, we're all citizens. Identity, biometrics, regardless of where you are. We want to thank you, Ma'am. Just before she came in, it was hardly known to the public that she's a software engineer who, as you saw, was speaking with a degree of knowledge. If you realize, she's an IT specialist, all right? She's an IT project lead with extensive experience and multifaceted skills in adopting relevant technologies. NIRA received at the headquarters what some of us who have practiced ID-related activities, what we call a Saul changed into Paul, like it is in the Bible, the book of Acts, chapter 19, verses 10. We all have challenges with NIRA. You can attest to that by the next session, which is in the question and answer. There's so many comments, but the ED is also very aware of that. And it's not going to go without saying. I'm going to request Miss Samantha Murunga to hold the microphone and move that microphone around. I know there are some questions in the house. We also have questions online, and would like to take you through them. The panel, of course. One by one, of course, they'll be distinguished. There is an anonymous attendee. Please excuse us with that, because it's really online. Yes? Privacy. Oh, privacy. Okay, thank you. Who says, does police and the army have access to citizens' data? If yes, when do they use it? And if no, is there a way NERA can facilitate the process of solving cases through identification of persons or suspects through the use of biometric data? I think this would help so much in dealing with crime. Is that clear, ma'am? The microphone in front of you can easily be activated. If you could take that on. Thank you.
The Data Protection Act gives a framework within which police or the army may access data at NERA, and it is on presentation of, I think it's called a court order. So at times, in the times that the police seeks to access data on an individual, they are required to present a court order or consent. If they wish to do it outside the consent of the person, they must present court order. Otherwise, they can come with a person, because sometimes people are participating in obtaining justice. They can come with a person and their consent, and they are given the data. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There is a certain risk taker, anonymous mom, who asks, how do I remotely access who accessed my personal data without writing to NERA, and what guarantee is there that what is presented to me by NERA is non-altered data? Is that clear?
Well, as I said when I started this discussion, that we shall deal with law and facts. Within the disciplines of IT, there is discipline called forensics. If you want to know if data has been tampered with, you can invoke digital forensics. You can invoke, but how would I tamper with your fingerprint? If I tampered with your fingerprint, it would no longer identify you, so it would not be yours. If I tampered with your face, it would no longer be you. That said, we do not grant remote access for identification of that because of the exact reason that we are having a discussion today.
Thank you. Do we have physical questions here?
No,
ladies and gentlemen?
I just wanted to add one more aspect in terms of your data.
Okay.
The information that we have on the database is based on information you submitted when you applied for the national ID. We have evidence of the document that you used to fill in that information and you signed off to, which you can also have access to. So that at any one time, it will always be your responsibility, it will always be your data for which you can access and you cannot later deny. Nobody else can alter that information. If there is any discrepancy in the information you provided and the information we have, that's where the aspects of correction of information come in. But just to give you certainty that in terms of the biodata, all your information is exactly as you provided to us.
Thank you so much. I saw a question out there. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, feel free. You have the audience and you have the people to ask. This is exactly where your questions can be asked and gotten answers for. We have the ED with us. Please feel free.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Remy is my name. I'm a journalist. Madam ED, you spoke fluently, and I appreciate you for the informative presentation. However, you mentioned about things to do with photocopying the national ID. Anyone of us here who has done so knows that we do so to avoid paying the charge of replacement. In most cases, we prefer carrying the photocopy. In the event that anything occurs and you lose, maybe you're being robbed, maybe you lose your belongings somewhere, so you can easily have your original back home to to avoid paying the what? The replacement fee. But in your presentation, you're like, what we are doing is out of law, probably, or what we are doing is not correct to have our data or our national IDs photocopied. So what alternative do you have for that case? Because the incidents happen, and then you lose your national ID, and then to go back to a NERA, they tell you you have to pay to have a replacement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Steve, as we wait to get that answer, Steve, who's online, Steve, do you mind taking the microphone? Steve, are you there with us? Steve, are you there with us? Could you please take the mic and ask your question?
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, I would also like to appreciate the Radical Nuba for this engagement.
Most obliged.
And to all the panelists and the speakers. I think I would like to appreciate the value of this discussion as a public engagement.
Thank you.
So on that case, I would like to first pose one question to the Acting Director, Personal Data Office. And this is in regards to their mandate. Have they considered that the data protection impact assessment should have been considered prior to the rollout, rather than having it done just in sequence as they roll out the mass registration is ongoing? The reason for that is that the privacy of the citizens heavily depends on the mandate that is invested in your office. And I think the public would want to understand that collaboration with the NERA is going to be fruitful to effect the intended results of the checks and balances in terms of privacy. The other question I have goes to the NERA ED, which is in regard to, in your submissions to the public, and since this has been a very sensitive engagement, because yes, there are different levels of the public. There are technical people, there are people who may not understand the technical bit of it, but the assumption that everyone online could not understand the different stakeholders participating today could not understand the security concepts. I think that was rather not right to do, because the essence of public engagement is that you have different stakeholders you're dealing with. So I would like to affirm that online we have participants that are very technical and very well versed with those different concepts that you are trying to elaborate to the participants on site, security in depth, and the different strategies you're trying to put in place to safeguard the data of the citizen. I think it should have been proper for you to elaborate more to the different participants online. And then lastly, the assumption that the privacy and the security risk related to the database or the national ID is minimal compared to the individual responsibility of one person losing their ID. I think that is also not accurate and factual. I want you to appreciate the sensitivity and the gravity of the fact that a national ID centralized database is a hotspot and a target for cyber threats. And these could be national actors. This could go beyond the scope of just me and you trying to, deal with personal risks. So this is an issue of national security, national sovereignty, and it should be addressed under transparency and accountability. And then you should also try to make sure that the public gets to a place where they are very confident in the fact that NERA and the different other institutions that are involved in this exercise are doing the best. So basically, it should be a proactive rather than a reactive situation whereby you're addressing the complaints, but you're sensitizing the masses and you're building the confidence, and you're bringing all the technical experts to break it down to the different stakeholders. I think that would be my submission. I really appreciate this engagement, And I also appreciate Uganda Law Society for bringing us together to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve, very much for what you've done. Digital transformation is one of the pillars of the Radical New Bar. I hope the question was clear. It was more question and comment. I hope you can take them on if it's okay.
Okay, I'll start with digital protection impact assessment. From 2022, and if you wish for the documentation and evidence, you can approach our offices and I will exhibit it to all of you. We began the journey of interrogating, 1, our current system, 2, the complaints we had received from the public regarding the way our current system works, 3, what technologies to take on. What would be our next gen technologies for the next 5 to 10 years? 4, what technologies we had to get rid of. So in terms of, maybe the mistake we made is we did not call it a digital impact assessment. But if an impact assessment study B, understanding current technology, reviewing and evaluating future technology, and understanding impact of a system to a population, I dare say that was done. You will not find a document called Digital Impact Assessment from 2022, but you will find several assessments to that impact, to that effect. As the DPO has told us, PDPO has told us, this is a continuous exercise. Even during the pilot and testing stage of the new technologies, we continuously evaluated impact of the different technologies. Okay, let me give you a simplest example. Even display, and it's that were not picked. Destruction of cards that have expired and are not picked. Impact on the environment. Documents that are resident, where people left their filled-in forms in NIRA, and their impact. So if a rose by any name arose, we did a impact assessment. What we did not do is name it a digital privacy impact assessment. But there are several measures and features that we measured. We even sent questionnaires to over 100 entities in and outside this country. And you can come for that evidence. Actually, that one was, the evidence was led by a lawyer, John Toa Bahemka. He can give it to you. So, I do appreciate the concern for that. If it be a document called the Digital Privacy Impact Assessment, before I don't have it. But if it be an assessment and evaluation of technologies on the population, that was done.
All right.
Now, the next issue raised is decentralized and centralized architecture. First, I would like to say thank you for the person who said that I shouldn't have discussed those things. There are people online who know. I appreciate that. But the point was raised by the previous speaker, who told us he doesn't have evidence of us doing security by design. And my point was simple. There is a fora for such discussion.
Sure.
It was not that I was trying to show off the security by design that is in place. By no means no. And I apologize if it came off as such. That said, Decentralization and centralization. The debate cannot be concluded in this room. It is a proposal that needs to be examined by both parties, because think about it. You are talking about a decentralized architecture. What it means in simple terms is that there are several data stores with data. That increases attack surface, if I was to use IT language. So we can have pros and cons, and I think the discussion should be, why did NIRA choose the centralized architecture over the decentralized architecture? And we shall give you our reasons for that.
Thank you.
Within the context of our country.
Thank you. Thank you
The
so
last
much.
one is on photocopying of ID. We did not say that don't photocopy your ID, but I simply asked a question that when you photocopy your ID, do you take care to find out if that's the only copy made? Do you photocopy and leave some things there? My point is that most of the data that is lost or distributed in this country, at least NIRA has never announced a loss of data, is not from NIRA. I do realize the impact of NIRA being hit, but I'm saying on a daily basis, there is data that is being exposed to lack of privacy by individuals who are not NIRA. That does not underscore or reduce the importance of NIRA protecting personal data. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Baker, you want to weigh in on that?
No, just to clarify, as PDPO, we are a regulator.
Yes.
We give guidance, but the implementation is by the data controller and processor, who in this context is NIRA, the data controller.
All right. Thank you so much. Madam Samantha, there is a question out there. Let's make it snappy, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Lillian.
Yes, Lillian.
Agaba Nabwevale.
Yes.
I voice my concerns through the Digital Agenda Forum that wrote to PDPO, raising concerns on personal data privacy risks in Uganda. We would like to appreciate you for this session, and also to appreciate NIRA for the work well done. The questions we raise are not really to attack. We only want to work together to better our nation, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so for when things are raised about special category data, especially the biometrics, we even had the Minister of Internal Affairs some time back saying that if the infrastructure allowed, we would even go into the DNA. And right now, Madam Kisembo has just said that there are 3 people with the same name and same date of birth, but do they share even the parentage?
Yes.
Before we go into now, bring your all 10 fingers, now bring your eyes, and also bring your DNA. What is the reason for us going into the special data category? Is it because the non-biometric data has not served the purpose well? And also, when it comes to the issue of phone surveillance, the one you have just mentioned, I choose to use my phone. Yeah, I have a choice. But when it comes to NIRA, it is a mandate. And it is locking me out, because if I do not comply, I'll be restricted, excluded, and there will be control. So let's not confuse the two, really, because this is a national database. And the last thing, if it is your mandate to collect identity data, why are we consenting then? So if I choose that, take only the basics my name, tribe, but don't, okay, take my 10 fingers, but leave my eye. Will I be allowed to register or not? Thank you.
All right, thought-provoking it is, and the right answers are just before you. There's Ms. Marunga, there's a hand here. Maybe we can take the one here. Okay. Yes, Shamil. Come to the front, please.
Yes. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am he who sits above everyone. I am the citizen for whom you all are accountable to. I am the citizen. Without me, you don't exist. That is undisputed fact. Does anyone argue about that in this room? No, the citizen. Thank you. Those are the people who I am here to ask questions for. All of us here, I think you have your WhatsApps, your phones, Facebook, whatever it is that we have. And every day we learn something new. Mr. PDPO, thank you, the regulator. I used to wonder if NIRA had a regulator. One thing which has always puzzled me is terms and conditions. NIRA is regulated by an act, right? PDPO, you have an act, I'm sure, or a regulation which governs you. The banks, I'm seeing you people, you're giving my data and other citizens to URA, to whoever, the banks, the telecommunication companies, all that. And the legal framework that has been floated around is...
I want to correct that before you lose the citizen. We do not give your data. Request us to give your data. You go to the bank to request NIRA to give them your data. I want to be categoric about that. Do not look for people and say, people, here is citizens' data. No. A citizen seeks a service and gives a permission to an entity to retrieve their data.
Thank you so much.
Maybe, just sorry to interrupt. You see, and I think this is where we get it wrong. A national ID is a mandatory requirement for you to access all the services that you've listed. You like it or not, the service provider will ask to access the database of NIRA to verify you. You like it or not. You get me? So what we're dealing with is now you have a mandatory system, you have no options. So it is wrong for Madam ED to now cast, as if she's casting a blame on you for seeking those services. And she's telling you, instead it's you who's sending them the request through your service provider. That's not correct. The law mandates those service providers to use your national ID as a mandate. There's no way you can receive those services. There is no way out. There's no opting out. So that should be corrected.
Thank you, Mr. Mhindo. Then we are the wrong people in the room. The parliament that created an implementing agency, we are the wrong people in the room.
Well, I think you can see how controversial that part is.
No,
Before even I complete my comments, you can see the discord on the what?
Can I just...
On the panel, without even me making the comments. But please, continue. Make your comments.
Allow me. My name is Brenda Kezabagama, Manager Legal Advisory Services at NIRA. We need to understand exactly what our issue is. One, you have to, as the National Identification Authority, we have a law that mandates how to operate. Every action, and if we are either attesting, are we saying the law has provided that NIRA do the following function in the following way, right? Collect the following information, both biodata and biometric data, in order to support the identification of persons. Remember that you have to understand the background, that at back of the idea, There were so many people collecting identification information. Government wanted to ensure there is one identifying authority, remove duplication, remove the fatigue to ask this information, have one entity to ensure that we are avoiding fraud, we are complying with international standards, so that we can able, as a country, say we are able to identify an individual through this particular agency. And the law provides for that procedure. The question now we're asking, are we saying there are gaps in the law as lawyers, right? So that we can distinguish that. Are we saying NIRA is not performing its function in accordance with the law? That's a different discussion. When we distinguish that, then we know exactly what we are trying to deal with. Because if it's an issue of law, that is what the current legal framework provides for, as it is to the dot.
Okay, thank you. So, as you can see, the hot issue. Mr. PDPO, you talked about MOUs flying around. And there are MOUs, I understand, I don't know how that framework works, between maybe NIRA and the banks, so that, I don't know if Bank of Uganda has a way they come into all that, but there are MOUs between several entities in regards to our data. My question now, and I put it to all of you, these MOUs that are being created by different entities on my data. One, I am not party to those MOUs. I'm like a third party who has just been brought in. I go to the bank, let's say Bank of Africa, this is standards that we need. We're going to get this information from NIRA, consent. I don't know who drafted that. MOU, it's a key facts document, KYC, whatever it is. So NIRA, rightly so, when the request comes to them for my personal data which I've consented to, I do not know to what extent that information is going to be released to maybe the bank or the telecommunications company, and to what extent my information is going to be used. For those of you who have been following the Senate hearings in the US, in the Congress, I follow a lot of those. There was an issue, she talked about the DNA and DNA sequencing companies. There's a DNA sequencing company which has collected data for over, I think, 500 million people across North America, and one day private company woke up and is now buying them and they are selling. And the Congress was like, look, this is people's personal information. You guaranteed privacy, now you're selling. So to what extent are we protected by these MOUs that are flying around between the several entities? And what information do we consent, as she has rightly said, to giving out to those entities, as compared to what information does NIRA have a mandate to protect on our behalf? Because the citizen, most of them are not literate enough to know which information must I keep secret and which information must I allow to be public. I don't know if you're getting the point here. Yes. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to answer your particular question, especially in your specific example regarding the banks and the telecoms, I'll use that as an example for today's discussion. And again, we'll look at the law and the facts. If you look at the Registration of Persons Act, Section 64 provides for NIRA to enable the access and use of information on the National Identification Register. It also, under the same act, there are regulations on the access and use of that information that are in tandem with the Data Protection and Privacy Act. But let's take the example of the banks and the telecoms. If you look at the banks, the MOU we signed for the banks and the telecoms is just a verification MOU. What does that mean? That means that they provide us your information, you present to them, and we verify with a yes and no answer as to whether that particular information is valid. In other words, we don't expose any information to them. As part of our measures on determining who should have what is the level of risk, they only get a yes and no exposure of information. Just to give you some information, is to show you that the processes are meticulously thought through to make sure that we are in compliance with the law, we are assessing the risk, which entities, either by law like URA perhaps, that provides that their law, where we must provide them information, and which one should we not because of the nature of the risk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. We appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
To emphasize that, and I will give specific example to FATFA. International protocols to which Uganda is party. One of the reasons that Uganda was removed from the grey list is because there was an ability now to properly properly identify, if required, persons who are into money laundering. That said, I will also wish to mention that someone asked me that if my parents, please note that the same entity that asked about can't you use parents' data, also asked why we collect parents' data. That said, I know of a Ugandan who has 5 sons and they all have the same 2 names. The same, by choice, he gave his children the same 2 names. They have 2 names only, and he gave them 2 names. So they do have the same father and mother, to answer your question.
Thank you so much. Ms. Marunga?
The form for consent, you see, consent has a form, and even evidence of consent for us is you supplying your fingerprint, and a warm fingerprint. Warm, meaning from a warm body. So I know you people watch movies where they go and spray something and remove something. For the standard used for the fingerprint, there's a standard within IT that even detects if it's a warm body giving consent. So I want to still emphasize that consent, and something still on citizens' representative. StanChart does not have, or Stanbic, or DFCU, or ABSA, does not have the data for all Ugandans. No. It has the data for the Ugandans who went to that bank and granted permission to give their data.
Thank you so much. Yes, there's a question there.
My name is Innocent. I'm not a lawyer personally. I'm a student, a university student. But my question is, I have a story behind me regarding my process of getting my national ID. So my question was that, okay, part of my story is that when I went to pick my national ID, I got a problem at their offices where they first confiscated my national ID and asked me to bring my parents to come and explain to them the reason why I had failed just like one question amongst the questions that they had asked me. So my question was that, do you have like anybody or person who can help people like me basing on my experience? Because it wasn't good. They treated me badly, to be honest, because as a student I tried to explain to them I don't have the powers, or neither do I have like the resources to call upon my parents from where they were to come at that moment, but rather the person who claimed to be the boss at nearer offices used to push me out of the office every time I used to come. And I found a problem that whoever I tried to explain that problem to at nearer offices, even the officers here at Lumumba Avenue, used to tell me the same thing. Just do what the boss told you to do. So I felt helpless till the day I had to get one of my uncles to come and vindicate me, because I was very helpless at that moment. So do we have anybody or person who can help people like me who go through such an experience? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Adam, you said you have a question. We're about to wind, and the panelists have other programs. I know there's just a lot that is coming through. We appreciate you, which also shows that we are having a lot of following, both online and physically. Adam, kindly make your question short, please.
Now you want it short. This microphone is disturbing me. Thank you so much, Madam Edie. My name is Adam Nwamanya, the award-winning head of communications here. Recently, there is an ongoing renewal of the IDs. As the head of comms, my members are asking me, when should we come to pick our new IDs? So I request that you maybe give clarity on that information. I can even see the setup is ready. Those ones who want here, afterwards you can reach out to those gentlemen and they work on you. So what is the time? When should we expect the new IDs? Thank you. Greetings to my partner in crime, Osborne. I remain Adam Nwamanya.
All right, thank you so much. Osborne is working with Peter Okwalinga, who we appreciate as well. And those are some of the people we know from your department of PR, as well as Daisy, who was here with us. So we thank you, and we would like to ask you to answer those questions. Of course, there's also some others that are online. We would like to run through them. Ms. Marunga will help us run through them and see if you can conceptualize them, because they're really around the same issue. Please.
So, Madam, if I found out that my current father is not actually my father, and I need to change that can't I change that in any information? Yes, you can. You can bring DNA, you can bring relatives, yes, you can. My notion was simply that it's not most people who want to change that. The first speaker talked about data flowing from NERA to MTN. Are you saying consent will be sought or is being sought from individuals yes, I say that. MD, on this front, what data you collect, how you collect it, and when you collect it, I'm very curious on why the scanning has been introduced now. Iris scanning. It's because not everybody had a fingerprint, and we're just broadening the inclusion.
Okay.
Is this consent genuine if ever the privacy notice recently acknowledges that we are compelled by law to register? That's a matter of law. I will not get into it. How is necessity being established for collecting iris scans? What service delivery? We have 1 million people in our database who don't have fingerprints. So what as a second factor of authentication or a second factor of biometrics, we thought would take the iris as long. What legal basis justifies the collection of iris scans under the Uganda's current data protection? Under our law, information is defined as identity data. What risk mitigation strategies exist? Maybe.
Sorry, we move to the next.
Where does it say that you need to collect biometrics? I think the lawyers will help me on that one, and there are many in the room. It's not normal to change your parents. The law does not recognize it. Whatever happened to adoption? I think Bonita, you missed the gist of discussion. The point is the quest of saying most people want to change their data is what I was saying. The data we collect is factual in nature. So most of it is not rechanging continuously. It is not transactional data like your bank balance. It is factual data. So I will not get into that argument. The owners of personal data have no control of how processes personal data. The lady does protest too much. Okay, I apologize for the protest. I was speaking it from the radical new
right, at the Rnb.
I am learning from the best. How is necessity being established for collection of iris scans? What service delivery failure? I have answered that one. There is anger in delivery that overshadows that would be good presentation. I get that feeling that you're averse to any different opinion. I apologize, Birungi Cephas, to that. How will NERA ensure that people with disabilities, eye-related, we pick 3 sets of data: face, iris, and fingerprints. When one fails, the face will always stand. The lady is not ready for an honest discussion. I apologize for that. Already noted his anger and defensive attitude. I apologize for that. Rosemary, I mean, that's an opinion I cannot question. That's the way the person feels. Yes, I'll be accused of being defensive or being defensive. What safeguards are in place to prevent political abuse? There are several safeguards, not only in the Data Protection Act, but even in the Privacy Act, and also within our own law. How does NIRA share data within the confines of our law? I think you said it's Section 64?
Yeah.
Section 64. How has NIRA implemented data minimization? At different stages, we have implemented minimization. For example, in renewal, we only pick your NIN and your new address. In the Form 3, we only pick data that is prescribed within our Act. I think that is a comment, Jacinta, to everyone. What is NIRA doing to address the following? Loss of card. Loss of ID has limited safeguards. Once reported, there is not a mechanism to invalidate the lost card immediately. That's a good point. We are putting within an opportunity within the new system for you to go and report your lost ID. The process of replacement is costly, complicated, and takes long. I acknowledge that. And we are putting in place a mechanism to make this process shorter. In relation to third parties that demand ID data, does NIRA have a published authorized third parties that can query ID data? Yes, we publish them every year in our annual report. Madam Edie, we shall not wait until NIN is linked to digital IDPs for state surveillance. That's a point of view. That madam from NIRA knows her things. That is a point of view. Those children were not born on the same day. Fair enough. They don't have the same date of birth. Fair enough. Yeah. My simple point is that there is only one set of data that uniquely identifies you. It is scientific, it's your biometrics. They are twins born on the same day. In that case of that family, which I want to mention, there is a group of twins. Thank you.
Madam Edie, there is one last question. Someone has asked that in the case that they are a hermaphrodite, but they have refused to register them, yet the law provides for hermaphrodites, what does the person do?
That person is right. The law provides for registration of hermaphrodites, and they can seek redress through our legal office or through any other party who can present their case. But we do register hermaphrodites. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The sex is shown as unknown to allow them not to write that in the whatever. Thank you.
All right. The Radical New Bar just got a new student in the ED of NIRA. Let's clap for her. Yeah, of course, we all know that these are issues that touch people's personal lives, personal data, and you can imagine the fire that she's going through. But for her to also condense it and give answers, of course, we couldn't read all of them out. It also shows that there is a lot of following in that regard. We thank you all that are following us online. We are so grateful. We also thank those that are here with us physically. Madam Edie, we thank you and the team as you've presented. We, of course, indeed look forward to further interaction. We are very, very, very intent as the Radical New Bar that whenever there is an issue, we just want to bring it straight and bring it also for you to hear from the horse's mouth. There is a setup across there for those that are physically present, just in case you have not renewed your ID. This is what NIRA does. They come up to the doorstep. Of course, we have challenges with Loro, Purongo, Terego. We're also asking those questions, but also the answers are in here. Mr. Baker, you have something to weigh in?
No, there's something pending. The lady from Digital Agenda Forum.
Yes, Ms. Agaba, right?
Yes, we received the letter, and the response will be given before the close of this week. That is it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Council, Muhindo, parting shots?
Yeah, I think I received most of the criticism on the platform, but rightly so.
You're right.
Yeah, it's a discussion, and I appreciate the feedback. I've learned a lot. There are a lot of things I didn't know, and from the discussion,
all right,
I've come to appreciate them. But also, I would want to implore Madam Idi and all the authorities in here is that specifically she has two classes of obligations. One, obligations as someone who's occupying a public office, but also a duty as a data collector. She heads an entity that is collecting a lot of information, and we have guiding principles under the data protection laws, and she must be very open because unfortunately she must account to Ugandans, and unfortunately she must be very transparent to the Ugandans because that's what that law requires.
It is actually fortunately.
Okay, yeah, that's good that it is fortunate. So the other thing, parting shot. Yeah.
Shots,
yes, they're supposed to be short, yeah, I know.
Thank you.
So the other thing is that, Madam Idi, I would want to report to you that we are doing a lot of work, not necessarily criticizing you. We are helping some Ugandans who have issues with their national ID and they would need, for example, a statutory declaration. We do that for them as an organization. So it's not that we just do the criticizing, we also do that work.
Okay.
Yeah, since it is a parting shot, let me just keep it short.
Thank you so much, Council. We are finally going to hear from Madam Idi on her parting shots, and then we can get a vote of thanks from the bless in order to close. Madam Idi, your parting shots, please.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate the pain and the passion on the topic of personal data, because the fact is that we are a simple custodian. We are not the owner. This is the one set of data where government doesn't own it, but it's the custodian. So yes, we want to improve. Yes, we want to uphold the principles of data privacy. We request for also a concerted effort on informing people of their rights with regard to the personal data within the law. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. She has done it good service, and now you know that we are open and accessible. Please visit them at their different locations, but also for those that are in Kampala, especially Central, at Polo Airstrip. We're going to leave room to invite the individual going to give a vote of thanks as we get to the close of this session.
Before I invite the head of department members affairs, I'd like to thank the panelists and everyone, and I'd like to thank the Radical New Bar under the able leadership of President Isaac Kesemakade for this great initiative, because I believe we don't live the same and we all get to learn something every Thursday. And with that, I'd like to invite Ms. Doreen Achekunda, the head of department, members affairs, to give the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A great afternoon once again. On behalf of the Uganda Law Society, Council, Secretariat, and the membership, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to you, our distinguished panelists, for the invaluable contributions today's discussion. Your expertise and insights have undoubtedly enriched our understanding of the topic and provided us with a nuanced perspective. We appreciate your time and effort you've taken to prepare and share your thoughts with us. Your dedication and shedding light on important issues affecting our profession and society at large is truly commendable. Your presentations have not only enlightened us, but also sparked meaningful conversations and debates. We are grateful to your commitment to advancing the legal profession and promoting access to justice in Uganda. Once again, thank you for your participation and making today's event a resounding success. We look forward to future collaborations and opportunities to learn from you. Once again, thank you so much, and we appreciate. So we kindly request on behalf of us of the membership, the NERA team, we appreciate that you gave us some days, 3 days, and we were able to inform our members that we were doing the NERA registration. So we kindly request that you also give us more days, because the membership is actually demanding or requesting that you give us at least a week so that we can communicate to them in advance. If they get to know, then the team is well prepared. They can always come over to make it easier. Like you said, very accessible. We appreciate. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
All right, thank you so much once again. Madam Edie, there's a question that we missed out that is required to be answered. The time frame within which renewed IDs are going to be issued.
We are striving in the first 3 months to issue from 4 to 6 weeks, meaning that by 27th next week, towards the end of this week, we should begin the issuance of cards, and I think by end of today, we'll have a fair number of cards printed. Thank you.
Is there a way in which we get notice of our IDs being ready?
Yes, yes.
Through a message or something?
Yes, through a text message for those who gave us their phones and are able to read.
All right, thank you. The other question that is lingering is the members whose IDs will expire beyond 2025, are they supposed to renew now?
It's really comfort.
Come again?
Comfort. They may desire, or they may wait for the expiry. For those whose cards are expiring in 25, 26, please renew. For those beyond that, you may renew or you may not renew. Both ways, it's okay with us.
All right. Thank you so much once again. Could you give them a round of applause? Without further ado, I'd like to thank members, the distinguished guests, the secretariat who are in the house, and the general public for this very interactive discussion that we've had, and for the panelists to grace us with this presence. We are very, very grateful. The Radical New Bar, under the able leadership of Isaac K. Semakade, would like to thank you all, like has been said, and wish you the best of time as you all required to go renew your IDs, as has been said, and we look forward to further interaction. For God and my country, thank you, and thank you. We normally take a picture, Madam Edie and team, the panelists. As a culture, we take a picture of the members who have graced this occasion so as to have it in the record for digital transformation purposes. Thank you so much.
That's what I've just explained. Saying that this is a new directive to renew, and I wish to clarify that the exercise started on 27th May. And again, to your question, yes, if your ID has expired, you need to renew.
Yes.
If it is still valid, you may renew.
Yes.
May meaning, if you want, you come and we'll renew it. If you don't want, don't come if your card is still valid. But if it is if it is expired, you need to renew.
Yes. Clear. Thank you so much. A picture moment before we can release the panelists.